not only and I'm speaking for myself, right? I don't want to speak for anybody else, but not only have I know that I have treated prayer transactionally, but I've also treated prayer as this transaction that I don't want to pay anything for, right? I
Yep.
want to just pray and get back out of, right?
Yeah.
And I started thinking about that of throughout the book, you talk about, you break down the Lord's Prayer, you do several other things. You talk all throughout the book about prayer. But one of the things you really stood out for me, and it was, you talked about being in constant prayer, right?
Yeah.
And to me, that in my head, that is the opposite of transactional because it's very relational. It's something that's constantly happening. And you wrote this, you said, when I first started studying what it meant to be a constant prayer, to be in a constant prayer, I thought the idea was ridiculous. It sounded like constant work, but eventually I realized constant prayer is a place of rest, not another form of striving. It's a rest of the heart, a holy, deep breath. Such prayer keeps us reliant on God and his vision so we don't slip back into believing we are gods with our own kingdoms to build, right? And so can you talk about that and maybe, expand a little bit more onto what you go into that with the book, but how do we be in constant prayer and not treat prayer like it's this transaction, particularly one that we don't want to pay our side of it. We just want to receive back from it.
Yeah. And just to finish the quote, if you don't mind, I'd actually love to, because what I don't want people to hear is like, oh, I've been binging too much Netflix. I can't, like, God's not going to answer my prayers or God's not going to engage with me. I want to read what I go on to say. I mean, I agree. I mean, you read a quote from the book. So I stand behind everything that I said, but there's something else that I think people need to hear. And it's this. And I'm going to read it. Now, just to be clear, I'm not suggesting that our lives and pursuits must be in perfect order before we pray. Perfection in that sense is an illusion and the enemy of spiritual progress, or any form of progress for that matter. Besides, God uses our prayers to perfect us, so he would never discourage us from praying, no matter how perfect and no matter how imperfect our practice may be, right? So I just want y'all to hear that. But there is, to your point, Taylor, we treat God, and people use the term like a genie, sugar daddy, whatever. Like, hey, if I get the inputs right, then the outputs are going to be right, right? Like if I figure out the formula of the transaction, if I put the right stuff in, I'm going to get the right stuff out. And that's just not how prayer works, period. And anyone who tells you that, they're wrong. Don't listen to a thing that they have to say about prayer. Anyone who gives you I'm serious, and I'm saying this confidently, because I've spent enough time in prayer. I've spent enough time studying prayer, learning prayer from people who went the distance with God in prayer. I've spent enough time with people I have so much respect for who know how to pray. And I'm telling you all right now, the moment you box God, like even Paul in his prayers would pray with a sense of reverence. Like he would pray specific prayers. He would put demands on God, but there was always this like, God, your ways are higher. Like he quotes Isaiah in Romans 11, quotes Isaiah, like, shoot, your ways are above mine. Like they're just higher. And we all have to come to that place.